let's go to what's going to be my favorite part.
Oh, no.
Is the straight up opinions, philosophies, and all that stuff. The first thing that I have that I want to ask is, when do you think abortion should be cut off, and why?
Let's see. That I really have not thought about. There does need to be a limit of when they can do it, unless it's for actual medical emergencies. So if I looked more into this, I'd have a straight up answer for you, but I didn't have time to look up into this.
What is your gut faith? I mean, we can go ahead and preface that this isn't necessarily your concrete view, but just in this conversation and what we have talked about and what you do know, what would be your guess on what you would say should be the limit?
I don't know, like,
and I'm not asking for, like, a straight up, like, this week, this trimester, just like a, yeah. Well, actually, I guess I kind of am asking that, but not
like, probably whenever, like, there for a while, like, your fetus is a fucking blob, but I don't know. I honestly don't. Like, it can't be, like, if your kid can be submitted into the NICU and they're going to be in that NICU for a while, I'd probably say that point, maybe. Okay, well, so do you mean, like, NICU and that point as in, like, a premature birth, or do you mean that as in any reason why they would be in the NICU? Like, premature birth.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant. So you're making a cutoff point based on viability. Yeah. So if the baby can survive outside of the womb, abortion up to any point before that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have.
Because then after that, it'd be, like, if I remember correctly, then if it's like after that, then it'd have to be absolutely medically necessary.
Okay. So you'd still support abortion past that time as long as it's deemed medically necessary.
Right.
Okay.
I'm not going to be a monster and be like, no, you have to carry it or you're going to go in jail. Because, like, medically necessary, like, you might die carrying this child, or your child is already dead and you have to. Because, like...
I agree with that.
Because past a certain point, it's not a miscarriage anymore. It's a stillbirth.
Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with women's getting abortions for stillbirths.
Yeah.
They're dead. Yeah. You're not killing anything. You're just getting, a dead baby out of you. Yeah. So, I have no issues with that.
In some countries, like, if your baby's already dead, it's not growing anymore. Or if they know that it's going to die within a couple minutes after birth, if you still go get that abortion, or if you miscarry, your ass is going in jail because you obviously did something wrong.
Well, I mean, I assume that was probably at some point in our history a thing too.
Probably.
Yes, but so we've established that your cutoff age is at viability, but what would you say? How am I going to ask this? Viability. First of all, viability doesn't actually have any scientific definition, but it is the term used for when they can survive outside the womb. But there's no actual set age at when that's a thing. So would you? I don't even know if they can do this, but I assume that they would make an educated guess at whether or not the baby could survive out of the womb. So would it be by a case-by-case basis? The doctor looking at everything and determining whether they believe the baby could survive outside the womb, and if not, then, move along with an abortion, but if so, they can't have one? Because it would differ.
Because everybody's different. It's like hair, like... Yeah. Sorry, I'm a hairdresser, so I have to use this shit all the time. Like, haircut A, or the same haircut, is not going to look the same on person A as it is on person B. Just like hair color, like this formula for this color is going to work amazing on this person, and then it's going to melt the hair off on another person. Everybody is different.
Okay, and it depends on where you're living at. Yeah. Because, like we kind of mentioned earlier, I mean, if you don't live in an area that has advanced, medical technology in their NICU, your viability for your child is going to be at a lower average than, say, a city. If you live in a rural area, it's going to be lower than if you're living in New York.
Yeah.
And then if we want to talk about third world countries, in sub-Saharan Africa, and I think it's Central Asia, East Asia, something. I'm just going to buy out. In sub-Saharan Africa, a child is 10 times more likely to die, or not a child, but a baby, is 10 times more likely to die a month after it's born than America. So viability there would be way lower than here. Plus, animals.
Yeah.
Tigers.
They got hungry, so they ate little Timmy.
I'm an idiot. Not tigers. I meant lions. Tigers do not live in fucking Africa.
Lions and tigers and bears. Oh, bye.
But yeah, but I'm glad that you did say that, because most people don't make that distinction. They just say, like, this gestation period is when every baby is viable.
Yeah. It just varies case by case, because you actually have to take a look and see what's going on in there.
Right. Are reproductive rights real?
Like, elaborate.
Is it a real thing that you have a right to control at any capacity your reproductive organs?
Like, they're in me, so they're mine. Like...
That's true, but you're also your own person, and it's illegal for you to kill yourself.
What?
That's why, if you call the police and you say, hey, Josh is trying to kill himself, they'll come and they will, attempt to apprehend him before he kills himself. But so, I mean, it's your own body.
Yeah.
But like kill yourself.
See, that's stupid. If I want to die, I want to die. Like 16-year-old me be like, just fucking do it. Just fucking hit me with the car, man.
But if you can't do that, then
that's vehicular manslaughter.
Well, I guess then what you're saying is suicide should be legal, therefore the reproductive rights exist.
Like, it's inside of me, just like my heart is mine, just like my toes are mine.
Yeah.
Just like, I can't tell you, hey, Trevor, go get a vasectomy, or hey... You don't have a whole lot. You just have a dick and balls, where you don't have...
You don't know that.
I'm pretty sure I know this.
I could be trans. You don't know.
I know you're not.
Are you assuming my gender? Now I'm going to get ticked on YouTube for that, because I made a joke about...
Like, where I have to have babies, you have part A and you have part B and C, and part B and C are in part W.
But you need both parts in order to reproduce.
Yes. I understand this.
So...
Oh, no.
If you need both parts to reproduce, what is being produced is not solely on your reproductive organs. It is also part of someone else's reproductive organs.
I see that. So, say, oh man, this is why we need Josh here. Josh, why'd you have to go to work today? Because I could use some examples, like, say, I get pregnant and I don't want it. Josh, are you gonna carry that baby for me?
Oh, now we're getting into father rights, which is kind of where I was going with the, it takes two.
Like, if you're in a relationship and you don't want that baby, you can't force somebody to have children. You can't force somebody to have sex with you. That's wrong. That's called rape.
I mean, if you look at it from the other way, you're saying that... So you're saying that the man cannot force the woman to have a child, but it's okay for the woman to kill the man's child.
God damn it, Trevor.
It's still both of your children.
Yes, I understand this. But if both y'all don't want it...
But what if one of you do?
Then you figure it out.
The man.
Like, alright, then I'm gonna figure out a way for you to keep this thing real quick. I don't want your kid.
Yeah, you can do that. I mean, it could be born, and then obviously you both would have to be at the hospital. The father,
but I don't want to carry it.
Sign off at the hospital. That's what I'm getting at is, is it really the woman's right if the father of the child wants the child? It's not just her stuff in there. It's both of their stuff. It's not her body. The baby is not her body. It's a separate being made of both of them.
Fuck. Was it? I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't want to carry this fucking thing. Do you want to carry it? Or if you could carry it, say...
Well, let's go ahead and I was trying to hold off on this, but we can't do it anymore because we're right fucking on top of it, so it just has to be said. Okay, because you keep saying you can't force me to carry it. You know, do you want to carry the child? Blah blah blah. And I don't mean blah blah blah. Like,
I know what you mean.
Okay.
I know what you mean.
I don't want to sound disrespectful. I realized it sounded disrespectful, but
Trevor, I have known you for how long?
I'm always disrespectful. Sorry.
You come off disrespectful without meaning to.
All the time. Yeah.
All the time.
No one talking about consensually, you know. Mm-hmm. It's like say you and Josh. No one forced you to have sex with him.
That too.
If you didn't want to carry a child, you shouldn't have sex.
That or wear a condom, take contraceptive.
Well, that's true, but those don't always work.
Yeah, I understand that too.
So anytime you have sex,
you're putting yourself at risk for getting pregnant. Uh-huh. Like, I get that. I really do. But there's one-night stands. Like, say you have a one-night stand with a chick. Pretend you're not married, first of all.
I can do that.
Pretend you're not married and you have a one-night...
Oh, shit. Okay.
There's nothing in it. It's empty.
Scared the shit out of me.
It's empty. Pretend you have a one-night stand with somebody, and they call you a few months later. Hey, Trevor, I'm pregnant. It's yours.
I'd be like, well, fuck, I fucked up.
So are you going to make her carry your child?
I mean, if we want to talk, you know, my own personal experience, that's how I got married.
Is it?
Pretty much.
Oh, shit.
She got pregnant the first time that we ever did anything. I didn't know about it until like 3 months. I mean, it was sooner than that, but like a month afterwards, because she didn't tell me. But yeah, and I wasn't married to her, so it was like, well, shit. I'm in it for the long haul.
Yeah, but okay, I didn't know that. That's so personal. Okay,
so but what we're here for.
But like, you don't want it.
But I did.
Yeah, I understand that you did want it.
Okay, well, we were talking about me, so I thought when you said you, I thought you were still talking about me. Go ahead.
But what if she didn't want it?
Then we'd be... Well, honestly, back then, I was super liberal. So back then, it probably wouldn't have been an issue for me if she got an abortion.
Okay, now.
But if I had the same opinions if I had the same opinions then that I do now, I wouldn't. Then we would be having a fight over her not her having an abortion.
Like,
well, she wouldn't be able to anyway because we're in Indiana.
You can have an abortion in Indiana. Just some areas you can't. Like down this way, you can't.
Oh. Okay. Well, yeah, it'd be if I wanted her and I didn't want her to get an abortion, then we'd be having a legal battle over whether she could have one or not.
But she don't want it.
Then she can give birth to it and give it to me and not see it again if she doesn't want anything to do with it.
She don't want to carry it.
I guess she shouldn't have had sex with me.
I mean, shit happens. I mean,
it does. But and then because what I'm not gonna say that you're promoting this, but what is insinuated by the argument that, you know, sometimes, you know, you just have one night stands and sometimes you don't want it is that you're having sex just to have sex.
I mean, sex feels amazing. I understand that we are put on this earth to procreate, and that's why whenever you have sex, you put yourself at risk for pregnancy. But this is how I see it. If you have sex, then you need to at least wear a condom or take birth control or at least know what you're doing. I'm not saying don't have sex. What I'm saying is just be more careful.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The only difference in my thought is if you don't want a kid, but you want to have sex, do all those things that you said, but also take into the consideration that you're risking having a kid, and if you do, that's your own fucking fault for having sex.
I understand that, but
that's the only difference we got there. And so I guess because I don't want to get off this because now we're getting some good clashing here, is how we are coming to those conclusions.
Okay.
My conclusion of agreeing with exactly what you just said, except for, that last part, is from a concern about the morality of our country. While your belief is based on, like, I'm asking why do you believe that thing, unless you've already said it.
Like, believe in what?
Why do you believe that that people should be able to just have sex and if they don't want to carry it, get an abortion? I'm
not saying just, like, go throw your dick and pussy out willy-nilly.
Right, yeah, I'm not saying that.
What I'm saying is just taking into consideration on what's going on and know that you are risking getting not getting an abortion, god damn it. You are at risk for getting pregnant. Everything has a risk. You have to take into consideration, like, getting an abortion is kind of like having a boob job. And it's not the same thing, but
be a big difference.
It's a big difference, but you still have to weigh the consequences. Consequences, there we go. Have to weigh the consequences. Do you have to have it? No, but you're wanting to do it, and they both have consequences.
Yeah, but what I'm positing is that you shouldn't be able to escape from those consequences, but you think that you should be able to escape those consequences. So what I'm asking is, why do you think that people should be able to escape that consequence?
Damn it, Trevor. I don't know. You can't, like I said, you can't force people to carry things that they don't want to carry. Like, say you have a tumor, and by law, you have to carry that tumor. What do?
They're asking my opinion?
Yes.
If I had a tumor, I'd carry it regardless of whether somebody told me I had to or not. If I got cancer, I wouldn't go through treatment unless...
It's, not gonna kill you. It's just, the tumor.
Oh.
The tumor! Because I get the whole cancer thing. I understand that. I watched Aunt Sharon. No.
Yeah. Not good.
No, not good at all.
Well, I get what you're trying to say, but I don't think that argument works here just because a tumor isn't a living thing. It is not something that can become alive, and...
It's a zombie tumor.
And although you can get tumors because of choices you made in life, you can also get tumors because of things that weren't your fault.
Exactly, like a pregnancy.
No, pregnancy is always your fault unless you're raped.
See, getting a tumor because of things that aren't your fault. Like, you getting raped is not your fault. You being molested is not your fault.
Yeah, but we weren't talking about those. I agree that those are not your fault at all. But the ones that are your fault because you chose to have sex, those are the only ones I'm talking about at the moment. But we can definitely dive into the rape thing. We'll agree on that. So your tumor, you did things that caused your tumor. That is your fault. Just like you getting pregnant and willingly have sex and not taking the precautions. I cannot talk today. Yeah.
It's your fault.
Yeah, so if I'm smoking and I end up getting lung cancer caused from smoking, that's my
your fault.
But
if you got it from secondhand smoke, that's not your fault.
Having treatment from lung cancer and killing a fetus, unborn child, whatever you want to call it, are on two totally different levels, because a tumor is not a child is a child.
But until a certain point, it's not technically a child, it's just a lump. It looks like
we're not going to agree on that, though. We can agree on that. I agree that because in my video I made a while back, I said I I wouldn't necessarily call an early stage fetus a human.
No, like after a certain point, yes, it is a human. It is considered a baby because after a certain point, it's not called a fetus anymore, is it?
I assume not.
I don't remember 7th grade science.
I think the entire time it's inside of you, it's considered a fetus. But the way we're talking about it is, early stage where it hasn't completely developed or whatever. And I don't even know all these, different stages. I don't think any of that matters.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at it from a totally different way. And that's just that. Regardless, if I don't consider the early stage fetus, excuse me, a human, it still will eventually develop into a human. So you are still destroying something that will be a human.
Okay, so what if you got a worm, like a parasite? That's a living thing. Are you
saying a child is a parasite?
It can be. Did you ever watch Breaking Dawn?
Oh my god.
But what I'm saying is that's a living thing. Are you gonna kill that living thing?
Yeah, because it's a tapeworm. It's not a child.
It's a living thing?
It's not a human.
It's still a living thing?
I'm not talking. I didn't say living thing. I said human.
Still a living thing, Trevor.
Yeah, but I'm not making a distinction between living things and unliving things. The fetus is living too. It's a living thing. Just because it hasn't developed into what we would call a child or a human doesn't mean that thing isn't living.
Yeah, but outside the womb, if you take it 14 weeks gestation, it ain't gonna live. It needs mom. It needs the mother.
It could eventually. We make advancements in the medical field. We can grow children outside of the womb from the moment of conception.
Yeah, I know that because I've had to look into that.
Yeah, so with that, you could abort it at absolutely any time. And technically you could say it's viable at any time because it's not grown in a literal womb. It's grown in an artificial womb.
Yeah, but if you take it out of the artificial womb and you have a certain amount of time before
it can be out of the womb.
Yes, like whenever my husband had to go get his sperm tested, you have to do it within an hour or it dies. Like that, if you have the child, the fetus, the clump of cells, the chicken nugget looking thing. I'm just going to start calling it a chicken nugget from now on.
That's fine.
If you take the chicken nugget out of the artificial womb, you have only so long to put it in the
artificial womb.
You have so long to get it from the artificial womb to the real womb, or it's not going to take. It's going to die.
Oh, you're talking about putting it... Wait, hold on. You're putting a test tube baby inside of a woman?
Yes. Like, you have...
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Like, you can get it started. Like, whenever you do IVF, in vitro fertilization, they take your eggs, they put it in a petri dish, and then they take sperm, and they fertilize it in there. They're fertilized, and then they will put it... they'll take so many in your uterus. This is also very fucking expensive. It's like 10 grand around.
I would imagine.
Huh?
I said I would imagine that it would be expensive.
But they take it and they put it in your womb, and whether or not it takes, if it don't take, then you gotta do it again.
Okay, gotcha. I'm an idiot. I knew you could do that because that's how they do the cheap cloning with Dolly and all that. But when you said that, my mind went to like a baby in an artificial womb
like
and then taking it out. And I was like, but they have to develop an umbilical cord. How do they do that? But, yeah. All right. Okay. So yeah, that all makes sense. Where were we at before we got off to we were talking about the...
It was taking the artificial baby and artificial chicken nugget. Hey, McDonald's chicken nuggets. Test tube babies.
They're actually babies. No, yeah, we were arguing, actually, finally, about the man, about the child being part of the woman. That's what we're talking about, being part of the woman, and all that.
Okay.
You don't want to go into that anymore?
I don't know, because, damn it, you didn't let me do enough research.
I didn't do any research on this though. I mean, you can.
Oh, this is all based on your facts and opinion, or not facts, but your opinions. Okay, like.
Yeah, based all on just me, sitting down and just thinking about this stuff. Facts don't necessarily matter in this case. I'm talking philosophically.
Technically, it is part of. Say I'm pregnant. I'm not right now, but say I'm pregnant, and this chicken nugget looking thing, without me, it can't survive yet. So up to a certain point, it ain't gonna survive out of the womb. It doesn't matter who wants it and who doesn't want it. It's not gonna survive.
If you take it out.
Yeah.
But if you don't take it out, it will.
Yeah. Say I don't want it. I don't want it.
Yeah, then we went full circle
back
to...
Yeah, then we went full circle.
The thing.
We're fucking confusing. And we're pains in the asses.
Oh, man. Well... So I guess we can just agree to disagree that we are just fundamentally disagree on the basis of why. That's what the whole thing was about. It was about you saying that they should be able to get an abortion. Because I asked you why you think they should be able to escape that consequence. Well, I said they shouldn't be able to escape the consequence. That's what we were talking about, escaping the consequence.
You sound like my Meemaw. I am pretty sure I have had this exact same conversation with my Meemaw.
Escaping consequences?
Yes, because the abortion came up on the TV and she spouted her shit. I'm like, oh God, don't say anything. Don't say anything. That's your grandma. That's your grandma.
It is true though. I mean, you said it yourself. It is a consequence of a risk that you take.
Yes.
Risks are important to take. I think we talked about this a little before when we had our thing about... We just mentioned about how it's important for people to take risks.
I think so.
Or that might have been with Josh. I'm not sure, but...
I don't know. That game is an awful game, and it's really hard.
It's a great game. But anyway, if you don't take risks, then you don't learn whatever. But some risks that you take
have consequences.
Have extreme consequences.
And I understand this.
And I, along with apparently every old person, don't think that you should be able to escape any of your consequences. Otherwise, you don't learn anything. And you don't get that experience of, this is what happens when I really fuck stuff up and don't think about the choices I make. Okay, so I got a question for you.
So... Okay, say you put your baby up for adoption because you don't want it. Is that escaping a consequence?
I mean...
I got pregnant, and because of the law, I was forced to carry my child. I don't want it. My husband doesn't want it. I have to carry it. And based on that psychological... Insert word here that I can't think of right now.
Just say based on that logic.
Based on that logic... then I can't escape my consequence. I have this child that I do not want. I'm trying to give it up for adoption, but because you're saying that I'm trying to escape my consequences when I could have nipped it in the butt in the first place, and the law wouldn't let me.
Well, I get what you're saying, and saying that giving your child up for adoption because you don't want it is escaping a consequence is a pretty good counter-argument. But... my response to that would be, you're not avoiding, those are two different consequences, I guess. I mean, they're both tied together, but they're two different consequences. You have the consequence of having sex and getting pregnant and having a child, and then you have the consequence of raising that child. But we can both agree that there are people who choose to raise their child that don't do a good job and have no business raising that child.
Yeah.
So, taking that into account, I don't know what to say, but taking that into account for me kind of changes that, being tied into those things. That didn't make any fucking sense, but, yeah, I would see those two different types of consequences. Having the child because you decided to have sex, and then raising the child.
But I'm still having this child whether I want it or not.
Yes, but you're not killing that child.
But I don't want it.
It's like saying, I don't want to get this traffic ticket, so I'm going to murder this cop. And that's to the abortion part, not the
yeah, I know.
Other thing.
That's like, wait, hold on a second before you open your mouth and say something stupid. But I do get that, but it's still, I don't want this child. I could have taken, I could have had an abortion. Because up to a certain point, it's not a child yet. I could have had an abortion.
But that's the one.
But still, you telling me that I have to carry this chicken nugget thing I don't want, and then forcing me to carry it, I still don't want it. And then if you're forcing me to keep it, saying that I can't get out of my consequences for having sex and I made a mistake.
Yeah, but the consequence of your mistake is having the child, and then after that is
you're telling
no. I got a good answer now for raising the child as being a consequence. Okay, having the child is the consequence of your actions. Raising the child is your response to that.
So forcing me to carry the thing I do not want is my consequence.
That's your consequence. And then deciding on whether or not to raise the child or give it to someone else that you think is better able to raise it, or because you don't want it or whatever, that is the response to the consequence.
But you're okay. But it's still the consequence that you can't get out of having this child. You still have to carry it. You still have to birth it. But saying that I don't have to raise it, you're still kind of saying that's not another consequence.
No, I'm not. I'm saying that raising the child is not part of the consequence. It's your reaction to your consequence.
Fair point. But still, I could have easily...
Kind of like going back to the traffic ticket thing. So you get a traffic ticket. Your options are paying that traffic ticket, or well, let's say you get pulled over. And what would happen is you would either get a traffic ticket, deal with, you can either not pay that traffic ticket and get put in jail.
You don't get put in jail. Your license just gets suspended. I've had that happen twice.
Okay, well, there you go. You can either
complete accident too.
You can pay that traffic ticket and get your license suspended, or sorry, I meant not pay it. Or you could choose to pay that traffic ticket and not get your license taken.
There's also option number 3.
So your consequence for speeding is getting that speeding ticket.
There's also another option you are forgetting. You can go to court and you can fight it.
Yeah, well, we're not talking about that one right now.
But it's still an option.
Forget that option exists. You're still dealing with the consequence, though. You're not just throwing the consequence to the side and not dealing with it.
Or there's secret option number 4, and you just kill the cop and run away.
Just like women who get abortions that aren't medically necessary. You kill the child and run away.
It's not a child yet. It's a chicken nugget.
Oh, man.
I'll go get some chicken nuggets after this.
Oh, man. But okay, so one thing that I find concerning and a little bit frustrating when talking to people about this, and we come to where we're at right now, where I'm saying child and you're saying it's not a child, is so I can look at it from what you're saying and understand that.
Hold on, these things, yeah, okay, these things are still plugged in.
and completely understand that. And to me, it doesn't affect my argument whether or not it is a child. Like I said before, I'm fine. I can go halfway and say up to a certain point, I wouldn't consider it to be a child, but I still say it will become a child, therefore it can't be killed because it is developing into a child. It's still life. And, well, now I said what you were talking about earlier, life. But one thing I find frustrating and concerning is when I talk to other people opposed to that, and I'm not necessarily talking about you right now,
Am I aggravating you?
Because I'm gonna no. Depending on your response.
Chicken nuggets.
Is that the people on the other side, and I'm not saying pro-lifers don't do this. I'm just talking about people I've talked to on the other side, and pro-lifers I've talked to too, cannot suspend their own belief for a minute and think about things from the other point of view.
Yeah. Whenever we do these, I do try to look at things from both sides.
But and then when we're we talk, never mind, forget it. Just
like whenever every situation, I try to look at it from both points of view. Like this, I do understand where you're coming from, I really do, and then my side, saying you can't escape your consequences, which I get, and then up to a certain point, it's not a chicken nugget anymore, it is a baby. But, and then the thing about the dad, if the dad wants it and the mom don't, if, say we're married, we're having a kid, I don't want it. If there was a physical way for you to carry this thing, awesome. Then here, take the chicken nugget and now it's your chicken nugget. I don't want it.
So the only issue is carrying it.
Right. Because then you could break up and then you won't ever have to see them or the chicken nugget thing again.
So I don't think we're going to get anywhere on that part of it.
No, because we're too opposed. Yes.
Okay, I'll sum it up and then we'll go into the next point, which ties into where I was trying to get at when I was asking you why you believed that thing. So to sum up what we were just talking about, I say that having sex is a risk you take that has the consequence of having a child. Mm-hmm. Even after you have that child, whether you raise it or give it up for adoption is the response to that consequence that you received from the risk you took, and you should not be able to escape that risk. And you believe that, you want to sum it up?
I'm not saying that, no, you cannot escape your consequences. Getting an abortion... oh, fuck, I lost my hair tie. Getting an abortion is not escaping your consequences. Getting pregnant is your consequence. Having an abortion in itself, because you're choosing to have this abortion, is a consequence too, because it's not all painless. You're traumatizing the living piss out of your body.
Okay, so
either way, you're not escaping a consequence. It's just one consequence over another consequence.
So you're saying the abortion is one of the responses from your consequence.
Right.
Like how I said about the adoption.
Right, your consequence from having unprotected sex is getting pregnant. Where with you are wanting them to carry the child, and if they don't want it, then they can...
No, hold on. I'm gonna pull some Steven Crowder shit right now.
I don't know who that is.
Other people that watch this might. He's a YouTube conservative personality. I'm not saying that you are... I'm not forcing you to carry it. I am not allowing you to kill it.
You still have to carry it.
Yeah, but the argument isn't I want to force you to carry it, is I want you to not be able to kill something.
Okay.
It's important because of where I'm coming from the argument. It's a mischaracterization of why I believe that.
And then my thing is, you're still the same consequence as you got pregnant. Where mine is your reaction, whatever the word is going to be here. Reaction?
Response. Reaction is fine too.
That works too. I can't English. I'm tired. I'm working 11 days straight, so my brain is mush. Anyway, your response to that, with you is, or any is, what do I do? Do I carry it and keep it? Do I carry it and give it up for adoption? Or do I have an abortion? And then that abortion is, yes, your response to you getting pregnant, but that is also a consequence in itself, because there are other things that can happen while you're having this abortion. You could die having an abortion too.
True. Yeah, you could botch it. You could bleed out or something, I guess.
Have you seen Dirty Dancing?
Nope.
You need to watch it. Because there is a part where it's been a very, 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 very long time since I've seen it. there is a part where I guess they got a phone call or something. They're meeting the friend. The friend is basically hemorrhaging because she had a back alley abortion. It wasn't done right, and she was dying.
Do you want to touch on back alley abortions real quick?
I mean, we can. I don't know a whole lot about it, but we can.
Well,
Oh, I do have the list of shit that people would use before.
Like clothes hangers. That's a big thing. They talk about clothes hanger abortions and all that. Do you think that women having quote-unquote back alley abortions is a valid argument to allow legal abortions?
See, this is how I see it. Yeah, back to the whole medical procedure thing. Like, if you get plastic surgery, it's not necessary. But if you keep it legal and you can... Because if you want an abortion, you're going to find a way to get it either legally, illegally, safe, or not safe. If you keep it legal, you are keeping it safer. And I'm not saying that back alley abortions aren't going to exist, because they obviously are, because some people can't afford an actual abortion. But if you keep it legal, it keeps it safer. Just like there's risk with everything.
Yes, and some of those risks are illegal, such as doing meth or breaking into someone's house and stealing things. So, to mitigate the risk of those things, should they be legal?
Like back alley abortions?
Well, I'm contrasting the argument that back alley abortion, or that abortions should be legal in order to reduce back alley abortions, in order to increase the safety of women who want abortions. And
I do, but I know you're gonna bring up the meth thing again. Like, make drugs legal. Like, that, you're just weeding out the fucking dumbasses. Like,
by letting people do drugs.
Yeah, like, okay, you OD, that's your fault.
But, okay. And you already said you think suicide should be legal, so I can't use that one. But the point is, I don't think that just because someone is going to do something illegal doesn't mean that we should then make it legal just because they're going to do it. And if they are going to pose harm to themselves by doing that, I still don't think that's an argument to make it legal. It's their own fault for doing something that, one, is illegal, and two, is, for example, marijuana. Mm-hmm. I do not smoke marijuana, never used it in my life, but I am pro-legalization of marijuana.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's no different than alcohol, other than the fact that you can have secondhand effects, while you can't have second effects with alcohol. But it's a plant and all that. But anyway, but if you choose to smoke marijuana while it is illegal, and you get arrested for it, that's your own fault for breaking the law. Yeah. Even though I still think that it should be legal and you should be able to do it. So even in the case of abortion, for me, that's not a valid argument to why it should be legal.
Like, okay, so I'm just gonna ramble off some of the things that they have used. Like coat hangers are a big one. They insert it into the vagina and up to the cervix in hopes to puncture the amniotic sac. Without the amniotic fluid, the fetus dies, and I think it's supposed to force a miscarriage. I don't remember. But coat hangers, knitting needles, crochet hooks. They would put tar in their vagina. Household cleaners, excessive exercising, drugs would have people hit them in the stomach area. Boiling water baths, which could lead to third-degree burns. The whole, like, throw a person down the stairs, like, to induce trauma. Trying to think. It said certain herbs, like, shove certain herbs up there, or, like, take them internally.
It's a weird one.
Yeah, like, if you're going, like, drugs, they might be illegal, but if you want to do it, you're going to do it anyway. So, you could make it illegal. Or you could make it legal, and the people that are going to do it is, okay, whatever. But it keeps... If you go in there legally, you can actually get the medical attention. So, like, if you're hemorrhaging, you can get the help for that. Where if you get a back alley abortion with, like, a coat hanger or something, you don't know what you're doing. You could severely injure, like, one of my roommates, they know somebody where their mom tried to get an abortion. I think via coat hanger, and it didn't work. And the kid ended up with a bunch of mental problems. He couldn't see, he couldn't hardly hear. And he ended up, she ended up having to carry it. And she gave birth to it and gave it up for adoption. And the kid ended up dying at like age 10 because they had seizures, and the seizures were because she did a lot of brain damage up there whenever she was trying to do that.
So then I guess my question is, why should I care about any of that?
So if you're making me give birth, and like if you don't want the kid, you're either going to give it up or you're going to have an abortion, right?
Assuming it's legal or illegal?
Either or.
I mean, or keep it.
I'm saying if you don't want it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't hear that
If you do
part.
not want it.
I mean, in some states, legally today, yeah. Or if you do it illegally, yeah. I mean, you're doing it. You're choosing to do it.
I'm asking you.
Would I do it?
What I'm saying is, you're pregnant and you don't want it. What do you do?
I have it and give it up for adoption.
Your partner doesn't want it. Give it up for adoption?
Yep.
Okay. But, like I said, she tried to have an abortion, and she did what you want her to do. She gave birth to this child she doesn't want, and because she couldn't get an abortion, she tried to do it herself, and this child, they were like 10 when they died. They died because their mom fucked up.
Yeah. It's a horrible thing. And I feel sorry for the child, but it's the mother's fault for doing that.
Right. So where she would have been able to get that abortion.
Or she didn't do it at all.
Like, that child was unwanted. Like, okay, think about it this way, too. There is so many kids in foster care.
True.
There's a lot of kids in foster care. And there's a lot of kids...
We'll say a lot of the kids in foster care get taken out of homes due to either their own behavior or because the parents...
Right.
Not
and you
just
know this because you worked with all this shit.
Right. Most of the time it is not simply because the parents didn't want them.
Yes. But the orphanages and stuff, whenever we actually have orphanages, if you make it illegal for abortion unless it is medically necessary, you're going to have an overflow. Because you're going to have an overflow of unwanted kids.
Yeah, well, in today's world, yeah, but that's because we didn't before necessarily, because people held the standard of not having sex unless you wanted children. So that would be a consequence not of not having abortion, but of today's standard of have sex just because you want to have sex, regardless of whether you want to accept the risk of having a child or not.
But this is today's standards. This is not, not back then. Like today,
my whole foundation of my beliefs of this, though, is that those standards they had back then should be held today, and that the standards we have today are not acceptable and shouldn't be passed along to the next generations.
But another thing too, like if you are wanting abortions to be illegal, it needs to be a little bit easier to get your contraceptives. I'm not saying pass birth control out like it's fucking candy, because some places won't give it to you because you're not married or you're not old enough. Like, I've been on birth control since I was fucking 12 years old. Not because I was having sex, because I medically needed it.
Yeah, some people do.
Yes.
I'm not saying anything bad about birth control.
But if it hadn't had been for my doctor prescribing it, I wouldn't have been able to get it. I remember them fighting to get the insurance to cover it because they're like, I think it was my dad was like, why the hell is my 12-year-old having sex? She's not. You know, birth control, it needs to be a little bit easier to get to, for one. And then that can cut down on abortions if you make it easier to get to your contraceptives. Some people don't have that. Or you have this option if you don't want kids, because trying
don't have sex. Go ahead.
Like, here in the state of Indiana, for you to get your tubes tied or a hysterectomy, you have to be over 25 and you have to have 3 kids. Your husband has to say it's okay, and you have to be married. Where if you know you do not want kids, go ahead and get the hysterectomy. Then you don't have to worry about it. Go ahead and get your tubes tied. You don't have to worry about it. But because they are trying to say, or trying to tell me I can't have this done because what if my husband wants kids? Well, then I'm not going to marry that person because I don't want kids.
Here's something that we can agree on, but if you agree with me on this,
we're going to throw everybody for a loop.
No. Well, there's that, but what I'm about to say of why I agree with you on this is exactly why I don't think abortion should be legal for people who just want it. And that is, I think that you should be able to get a hysterectomy.
Yes, a hysterectomy.
A hysterectomy or tube ties or whatever the procedures are.
Yeah, or like if the man doesn't want to risk having children, like you
vasectomy.
You can just go in and get a vasectomy where you don't have to fill out a mountain of paperwork like my mom. Like, we've got polycystic ovarian, and they wanted her to wait until she was 30 to have a hysterectomy, if I remember correctly. But with polycystic ovarian syndrome, you have one of 2 things. Your period does not exist, or you have one for months at a time. I'm at this end of the spectrum where I don't have one. My mom was on the other end. And without her uterus, she didn't have to worry about that anymore. But her doctor wanted her to wait until she was 30. I think, if I remember correctly, Mom, if you're listening to this, re-educate me later. If I remember correctly, it was either say she wanted more kids or something like that. I don't remember. Where it was medically necessary. I remember her begging, for them to do something.
Yeah, and one of the main reason why they won't do those things until later on and all that other stuff is because of the idea that if you have it now, you're going to, regret not having it later because you won't be able to have children unless you have 2 ties, because you can get them untied. But if you have like the other procedures where it's irreversible, later on you're not going to be able to have children.
Yeah,
I disagree with that, and that's where we can come to agreement that I think at the age of 18, you should be able to make the decision of whether or not you get one of those procedures or not. And this is the exact same reason why I don't think abortion should be legal. And that is, you are making a choice that you may regret later in the future, and a consequence you shouldn't be able to escape, but it's your choice to make.
Yeah, just like an abortion, like that is your choice to make. Just like smoking a cigarette is your choice to do meth, your choice to drink alcohol, your choice to watch that movie. That is your choice.
Yeah, we just disagree on the abortion being
legal.
Well, not legal, but like the choice.
Yes.
Or whatever. But yeah, so boom, after all this argument, we did find something we agreed upon. Oh shit. So what I was getting at through the whole thing was more the argument of morality.
Yes.
Of whether getting an abortion is moral or not. Also on this, the Leana Wane, whatever you say it, the current president of Planned Parenthood.
Okay.
She said that providing abortions is a moral imperative.
I don't know what that word means.
Basically something that you have to do. Like, you morally have to do it. It's
you don't have to do it if you...
Or I should say compelled. You're morally compelled.
To do what? Get an abortion?
To provide them.
Like, you don't have to. I mean...
Yeah. Well, they're saying if they didn't provide them, it would be immoral of them not to.
I mean, this is where I stand on it. Like, do it or don't. At least educate them on what they're going to do. Like, some places, like, they make you look... Like, they'll do an ultrasound and make you look at the heartbeat and try to guilt trip you. Well,
I don't think it's to... Let's get into that a little bit, because you said it was to guilt trip you. I don't think that it's to guilt trip you. I think it's to make you realize what you're going to do and make sure that you are 100% sure that this is what you want to do.
I do get that, because some of them are like, yeah, I want it, and then they sit on it for a little bit. Mm-hmm. They're like, no, I don't want to do this. I do understand that, but if you don't want to... because abortion's all about timing, because you can do the pill abortion, where it's basically a super mega birth control pill, and you can only get that done up to maybe 10 weeks, it might be earlier. You don't have a whole lot of time for that, at all. Or, it's all about timing. Like, if you're not wanting to provide abortions, at least give them the information, not based on religion, not based on morality. Give them actual medical facts. Like, look, this is what's going on. This is what you're looking at. This is what happens. And then these are your risks.
If it's legal and you're talking to a medical professional, yes. I disagree that morality shouldn't play any part in it, though.
Right, like should or should not.
I disagree that it should not play any part on whether or not you get an abortion.
Yeah. Like,
Wait, hold on. I agree that it... No, I disagree that it should not play a part in your decision to get an abortion.
So based on your morals, whether or not you should or shouldn't?
Well, fuck. That was a bad way of saying that, because obviously you think that it's moral or immoral for you to get an abortion. But I mean, looking at the broader idea of whether or not you think abortion in general is something that is moral or immoral should play an effect.
Like, I'm right there in the middle with it. It's like, I have not been in the position to where I would need one. So I can't say whether or not personally I could or would get one, because I don't know, because I have not been in that position. So I'm not saying I agree it's moral or immoral, because I haven't been there. Where you've got a little bit more leeway, because you do have a kid. I don't.
Yeah. Well, okay, so then my whole thing, I think I said this earlier, but we didn't actually talk about it, is that the basis of my argument is that we need to uphold a moral standard as a society as a whole. You can determine what you want your morals to be as an individual, that's fine. But as a society, we need to have a consensus of what is moral and not moral. And to me, we need to, part of morality is taking risk and suffering those consequences, because that is what helps you build morals, is living out consequences of your actions and then learning from that experience and learning, right from wrong and all that stuff. And to me, having an abortion is escaping that consequence of having sex. And that leads us down a road of where we are at in some places today, like Canada, in some states, where you can go in, you can have an abortion just because you don't want it, not because it's medically necessary or anything, just because you don't want to have a kid. And then you can go out and you can have sex, get another abortion, have sex, get another abortion, as much as you want, as long as they will do it for you.
See, that's... Okay. And, like, I get... It shouldn't be, like, buy 10 and get the 11th free. Like, there needs to be, like, some form of stipulation. Not to where you can... Okay, I'm pregnant, gonna go get an abortion. And you get pregnant 8 times and you have 8 abortions. Like, there needs to be some form of stipulation. I'm not saying you can only have 2.
You're not saying that, or you are saying that?
I'm saying that there should be some form
like you can only get 2.
I'm not like make max 2 or 3.
Okay.
But because most people don't, they only have 1. Most people. But I do have a question. What is your stance on ectopic pregnancy?
On what?
Ectopic pregnancy is whenever the egg attaches itself outside of the uterus and it tries to grow there. Or if you have...
How the hell does it do that?
It very rare occasions. Or, like, you can have your tubes tied, and because here's your tube is, say, tied off here. Sometimes eggs can slip through that, and that egg has nowhere to go. It's stuck there, and it can be fertilized. And if it grows, it could kill you. So, if you had a pregnancy like that, or a ectopic pregnancy, some people are trying to be like, oh, then I would just take it out and put it in the uterus.
That's what I was thinking.
They don't work that way.
But why? Because they can do it with artificial wombs to a regular womb. Why can't they do that too?
Because you would die.
How?
Because if you do the pregnancy in the fallopian tube, usually 9 times out of 10 you do miscarry because it has nowhere to go.
Right.
So here's your uterus. This is triangle looking thing. You have your fallopian tubes, which are off to the side of it. If you get pregnant through your fallopian tube and it's stuck there, if it keeps growing and growing and growing, you'll die because that's not where it's supposed to go. And usually, like, you can't just go in there and take it from the fallopian tube because you could potentially bleed out and put it in there.
I don't understand why they can't do that. Because they do C-sections.
Yes.
So why couldn't they do that?
Because you would bleed out.
But you don't bleed out when you get C-sections,
that's a totally different thing. Because you're not going from the fallopian tubes, you're going into the uterus.
Yeah, and you're making a much larger incision than you would need to do for the fallopian tube.
But
I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I don't know anything about what we're talking about at all. I'm just going off that I know that, they get C-sections, they cut open the uterus. There has to be a much larger incision because the baby's way bigger. But I don't know. So
and usually whenever, like, and sometimes too, like, you don't know you're pregnant until you go to the doctor's office and they're like, what the fuck? That's not supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. What the fuck is that? Like, in some places, like, if they're saying that you are having a ectopic pregnancy and they take it out because you're gonna die, or it's already dead, that's an abortion. It's not anything. It's just there. So, if they take it and it's not viable for life, like, it's just kind of there, would you consider that an abortion, or would you just consider that the removal of something that is not supposed to be there?
I mean, I would consider it medically an abortion.
Now, would you keep that legal?
So, let me say that I don't know. I'll give you an answer, but I don't actually know, so this isn't going to be my, like, official answer, because I don't know anything about this, and I don't know... I'd have to look into it and see what, like, whether or not what I've been saying is a option or not, and what the likelihood of that being successful is and all that. I'd have to look into that. If it was guaranteed that you would die, then I'd be okay with that, I think. I'm also not 100% sure on my stance of getting an abortion if it's medically necessary to your own health. I don't know.
Like, now, if you go to, like, a Catholic hospital, like, if in the very rare cases where you can only save one, they'll let the mom die. Because the mom had her chance at life.
Right. Yeah, it's like the concept of if there's a sinking boat, the first people that get on the lifeboats are the women and children. So I understand that, but I'm like 50-50 on that. Now, or I'm not 50-50 on that necessarily. I'd say I'm like 75% on the Catholic side on that. I think. Oh, no. My bad. I fucking flipped that the wrong way. I am on board with, if it's, I think. So I'll say I'm 75%, maybe 80% on the side of getting an abortion if it is guaranteed that you're going to die if you do not abort. I am not on the side of getting an abortion if you're going to suffer some medical complications that don't lead to death.
So what if, okay, so they do have a thing where, like, your baby is basically born, like, there's been things where, like, babies have been born without a brain stem, and they're gonna die very shortly, whether it be minutes or hours, whenever they leave the womb, they're going to die. And so would you, after finding this out, would you rather go ahead and give birth and mourn the loss of a child, or would you rather have an abortion and not have to mourn per se the death of your child? You had an abortion, it's no longer there, you don't get attached to it, you don't have to plan a funeral.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I've seen people that do have funerals. They even have little caskets made for that, and they mourn terribly.
Yes. Or, like, if you miscarried, like, up here at Deaconess, if you miscarried, they have little caskets.
Yeah. Yes. But to answer your question, I don't 100% know on that.
Because you haven't been through it.
Well, no. So I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but I'm pretty good at about thinking as someone who's going through something that I haven't gone through. Even though I seem extremely callous and incapable of empathy half the time, I'm an extremely empathetical person. I just don't show it. So I would say to that, I don't know if I would 100% be on board with that, because I do empathize with the idea of having the kid and it dying within, a short time after being born. Mm-hmm. I definitely am understanding of the people who say that it's cruel to do that, to make the child live and then die. I don't care about the parents mourning. That's not what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the child, making the child live for like a month, 2 years, and then dying. But I also understand people that would say, they still get the chance to live. There have been cases where, they say the child's going to die within a certain time, but they miraculously don't die.
Yeah, and I understand that. That's why I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not completely pro-life, but I'm not completely pro-choice. I think there needs to be something in the middle. Like you said, there have been some cases where they give these babies only a few months to live and they live years. And there's also been some cases where it's like guarantee that they're gonna die, like the one born without a brain stem. And then there are some cases where whenever they die or whenever they're born and they pass, they're gonna be in agony the entire time.
Right. Yeah, and so that's where I'm kind of on board with that, because I wouldn't want to put, that child through having to suffer 6 months of agonizing pain and then dying. To me, that seems a little bit more crueler than the abortion, and taking the pro-life point of view that the child in the womb suffers pain while they're getting their body parts chopped off to get taken out. That pain is probably less pain than they would have if they suffered 6 months of pain rather than an hour.
And whenever they do that, like what you're talking about, what they do is they go in and they nip the spinal cord and they're dead. They don't feel it. And then they remove them.
Yeah, well, I wasn't saying that it's true that they do that. So I probably wasn't clear on that. I wasn't saying that it's true that they do feel pain in there. I don't know. I don't think any of us can really 100% know because you were not the baby.
Yeah.
But talking from the perspective of someone who does think that,
yes.
I still think it would be probably less painful to go to put the baby through that than to make the baby live for months in agony. Yes. So I can...
Or another question, like, I personally know somebody where their child is having heart problems. They're under 5 and had open heart surgery more than 3 times, and they're on oxygen. And so they found out while she was in the womb that she had all these problems, and may have always have these problems.
Yeah. Well, a former friend of mine, he was born with a hole in his heart.
Yeah.
And so he had, obviously some serious medical complications, but, he's still alive today. He's fit. He's good to go despite his circumstances. So, I mean, like we both pretty much agreed to before, is you can have those...
The very rare where they're fine, and you have the very rare where they're not fine.
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, and I think you agreed that it's like a iffy thing, where we see both sides, and I think we can both agree that we don't think that right now we have a complete answer to those questions.
Because we haven't been put in that position to where...
I don't even think... I'm sorry, go ahead.
We haven't been put in that position to where we didn't need that option.
Yeah, but I don't think that even really matters. It might be... I think it might be worse on your judgment by being in that situation.
Yeah.
Because then your emotions are running high.
And it's like, I don't know what to do. Do I want to watch my child potentially suffer for years and then they turn out okay? Like our one cousin, they told him he wasn't supposed to live past, I think, a few years, and then that went to 16, and then that went to 50 something. He ended up dying at 51.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
I believe so, yeah.
But that's one of those things. It's like, I don't know, because you're, like you said, the fuck was that?
It's Kesha.
Your emotions are running high. You don't know. You can't really make...
Right. You could end up, for him, you could end up, being running high on your emotions and being like, look, he's going to be suffering. Let's just go ahead and end it. Mm-hmm. When in reality, he would have survived to 50-something.
Yeah.
So
that's one of those where it's like you really, really, really have to take into consideration of what you want to do. Because that's when time is of the essence. Because you only have so long. So if you want to go with an abortion, you only have so long. And if you don't, then you carry on.
Yeah. Not on the abortion part, but on what you meant by connecting that to what we were talking about. Yeah. So to wrap this up, let's both give our summary of our complete view on abortion and all that. I'll go first, and then you can have the final word. So, like I've already explained before, my basis for my entire thought on abortion legality and all that is from a morally based approach, not as individual morality, but as a society morality at all, because I think if we do make abortion legal in the way it is now, or we keep it the way it is now, where you can just get one if you want one just because you want one and escape your consequences, it leads us down a path to hedonism, which is not a place we want to go, even though some people think that we should. So my stance on my stance on what kind of abortion should be legal is not no abortion should be legal. That's where I disagree with a lot of pro-lifers, and I disconnect with the Christian ones. Mm-hmm. By the way, if I haven't made that clear yet, I'm not a Christian, even though almost every time I talk about a subject, it seems like I'm talking as a Christian. So I don't think you should be able to get abortion, period, if you are only getting it because you don't want the kid. You can adopt, or like I have said multiple times throughout this, just don't have sex if you don't want a kid. If you are raped, then I think you should be able to get an abortion. I do think it should be, obviously, as if you're raped, you need to find out as soon as you can whether you're pregnant and get an abortion as soon as you can. You shouldn't, be raped and then 20 weeks later
because usually you don't find out until you're about 8-9ish weeks.
Yeah, and that's fine. And my reason for them being able to get abortions because they were raped is not because
they chose to have sex. They were forced to have sex.
Yes. They did not choose to take that risk. They were forced into it, and in that case, since they did not choose to take the risk, they should be excused from the consequences of somebody else's actions.
Yeah.
I don't think that you should be able to get an abortion for incest. And I'm separating incest from rape.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were raped by a family member,
that's different than
having consensual sex with a family member.
And I understand that because incest is kind of gross.
Yeah, and then as medical necessity for abortion, medically necessary abortions, like I just stated like 10 minutes ago, you should be able to get an abortion if it is guaranteed that there is a serious risk to you dying. You should not be able to get to an abortion if you are just going to be suffering some medical
complications.
Yeah, some kind of medical complication that isn't going to result in death, because that's just part of giving birth. People have been doing that for years. If you die, that's different.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead. And for the last part, this is something we didn't talk about much, other than that the non-STEM brainstem kid is people who want to get abortions because their child, because we can test for like Down syndrome and stuff while it's in the womb, and some places I believe you can get an abortion just because they have some kind of severe complication or whatever it's called, mental disorder or
disability.
Sorry, yeah, thank you. Mental disability such as Down syndrome, and you can get an abortion. I don't think that's okay either.
Like they have severe cerebral palsy and they can't walk or feed themselves or like that ever.
I don't think you should get an abortion for that. I mean, I've known a couple cerebral palsy people, and they have done absolutely just fine. And it's like,
that's just the only thing I can think of. Like, if they're not going to be able to live a full life, or they're going to be confined their entire life.
But you're defining full life as you know it without disabilities. I mean, if you talk to plenty of disabled people, they'll say they're living a full life.
Yeah.
It's just we aren't living the kind of life with the complications they are. But I know a lot of disabled people who don't consider their disabilities a complication.
Yeah. But, like, what I'm saying is, man, now I sound like an asshole. I'm not meaning it like that, but, like, they're, like, severe complications where they could, live 10 plus years, or not 10 plus, like, very, very, very short lives.
Oh, right. Like how we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not saying, like, if they have cerebral palsy, abort them. What I'm saying is, like, they're not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to be able to walk or talk or feed themselves. They're just basically going to be baby state their entire lives.
Yeah. Well, I would go back to, like, what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give a 100% answer on that, because
that's where I'm on the fence about it, because you have to make the best decision, because they could turn out perfectly fine, or they could not.
Well, in that case, I don't think. No, never mind. Sorry, I was taking what you just said out of context.
Back to the whole, like, yeah, they're gonna live, but they're gonna live in agony their entire lives.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I don't have a full stance on that. I can see viable. I can see arguments that make complete sense from both sides of that. So I'm on the fence about that one. But for the people who want to get abortion simply because they have, like, cerebral palsy or Down syndrome, I don't think they should be able to do that. Either you raise the kid with the complications, you have a challenge in your life, or you give it up to adoption to somebody that is willing to raise it.
Yeah, and, like, there is a lady out there who takes children who have severe disabilities, like they're like she knows that they're gonna die too, and she makes sure that whenever they do die, they're loved, like they're not by themselves.
Right. Yes, and you got great things like that because that's where I was thinking, but I didn't want to go into it. Was that
it's like hospice for babies?
If you have a kid that ends up living like 10 years,
yeah,
they can still enjoy and live a pretty good life up to 10.
Yeah. They
can experience a lot of things even though they die. It sucks that they're going to die.
Yeah.
But then we go back to, it's the parents' decision on whether they want their kid to be able to experience those 10 years. Should it really be the parents' choice on whether they do that? And only reason I'm saying that is because after a kid is born, parents can't make a lot of choices, especially ones that involve damaging a child's life.
Yeah.
So now, I'm wondering.
That's one of those where you have to do what with the best intentions, what is best for your chicken nugget thing. Your child, your baby, your whatever you're going to call it.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's all. I covered all of the types of abortions, right? I don't think gestation matters at all, except in the case of the rape. It needs to be within the first
because if I remember right, don't come at me if I'm wrong. You have a small window when you are sexually assaulted to get in there and get that rape kit test done.
Oh, let me also say, it needs to be reported. You should not be able to just go to a clinic and say, hey, I was raped and get an abortion, because then obviously anyone who wanted one could just go and say,
and I understand, and some raped victims, I understand why they don't want to go through that, because they have to be, like, they strip you down, and they do have to go in there and swab and get the DNA, and they take pictures of any marking, so they strip you naked, and you have to talk to all these people, and you basically kind of relive it, but that's why part of them, they go unreported. Yeah. But I do agree, you do need to report it. I know you don't want to, and I know it's traumatizing to relive it, but you really need to.
Yeah. If not for yourself, for other victims that may be victimized later by that person that you could have got locked up but didn't because you didn't want to report it.
Yeah.
But, all right, so I covered all the basis of different. Okay, so what about you?
Well, it's like I'm for it. I'm not saying like go out and hoe yourself out and not take the precautions and do the whole punch card abortions, buy one get one free. Like there does need to be some stipulation on that. They need to make birth control easier to get to. They need to make it like, if you want to get your tubes tied or a hysterectomy, you need to be able to. So you don't have to worry about getting an abortion. You don't have to worry about it. I'm saying that they should be legal to keep them safer, and if something were to go wrong, you're right there to where they can give you medical assistance. I'm saying, I do agree with Trevor, whenever you, like, abortions definitely need to be legal, especially with rape, because you're not escaping your consequences because you were forced to have sex. You weren't willingly having sex. I do think if you're choosing to have sex and you don't want to get pregnant and you ending up pregnant is a consequence in itself. And if you're choosing to have an abortion, that is how you take course of action of your consequence. I don't know where else to go from here.
Right. Well, and I know I said I was going to give you the last word, but I got to say this. This has been extremely enjoyable for me. I love having conversations like this, especially the end part. And
so, I'm tired.
I know. So, I mean, I hope that it was enjoyable for you too, even though I could tell, and I'm sure you could tell, that there were some parts in it where we were getting a little.
We were just going around and around and around and around and around. It's like the world's worst merry-go-round.
Yeah. But, this is not an easy conversation to have, especially with people that you don't share the same opinions. But not very many people will sit down with someone that they don't agree with and, actually have a real conversation about it. So
yeah, it's either shut the fuck up, you're wrong, I'm right. It's my way or the highway. I'm like, no, like...
Almost no one would come and sit down and have a conversation with me about something as divisive as this. So that's what I'm trying to get at here, is to give you huge props and, for other people to understand that you are one out of like 100 or 1,000 people that would actually discuss something like this, while everyone else would be like, what? No, you're a bigot,
Yeah.
And
see,
all that.
Because I like doing these because I like hearing other people's views. I was always taught to take things... I was basically raised on the morals of don't be a dick. I don't care what religion, age, sex, whatever you are. You're respectful to me. I'm respectful for you. I was raised to take in consideration everybody's feelings, but also doing what is best for you. Mm-hmm. But also listening and taking both sides of whatever it is and figuring out a solution or a topic or whatever.
But I mean, you should realize that about yourself, though, is that that's a quality that a lot of people, unfortunately, on both sides of our aisles, don't have. That they don't care to hear the other argument. It's either their way or it's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I want to convey to everyone listening is like that. That's what I hope everyone that listens to these gets what I get out of them. And the whole point of why I'm doing this and what I'm getting out of it is hearing someone else's views to get me to think about my own. And we caught that on the recording where you threw me for a fucking loop when I tried to talk about the adoption thing, and you brought up I can't even necessarily remember what it was, but you countered my adoption argument by saying, well, isn't that also part of the consequence? I think is what you said.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave that in there. I paused for probably a good 30 seconds, and it took me about a whole 5 minutes to come up with a solution. So people got you guys got to witness, I guess you can say, what this show is all about. Yeah. Hearing something that completely destroys what you're saying and then trying to figure out how to make sense of your beliefs after, hearing something like that, which is what I was able to do. But yeah, so I just hope everyone else realizes that and gets the same thing out of these that at least I know that I have, which is listening to the other argument, challenging your own beliefs, and either recognizing that some things that you believe contradict other things you believe and rearranging the way that you think to where you're consistent in your thought and willing to change your beliefs if someone else can make you realize that they're not correct. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can help this show grow by sharing this video, as well as subscribing on YouTube, liking the Facebook page, or following on Podbean. Just click the links in the description below. Thanks for listening.